All right, good morning, everyone. Go ahead and call to order our February 25th LEOFF board meeting. And we'll start off. Let's take a moment of silence to remember our fallen brothers and sisters. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, just an update. So I'll turn it over to Jacob or Steve. Whoever wants to lead this. I think it's Jacob.
Yeah. So just an update on legislation. So the board's bills, the standby pay bill is not advanced, but the medical premium reimbursements for surviving spouses of line of duty death has continued to move forward. It passed out of the House and Senate and has been scheduled. The House version has been scheduled for executive session tomorrow in Ways and Means. So looking pretty good with that one. The fiscal cutoff is Monday. Some other bills of interest. So the first one here, House Bill 2414, that was concerning membership of wildland or aviation firefighters in the LEOFF system. So that was looking at moving the DNR firefighters into LEOFF 2. That did not move forward. However, kind of ties into the next bullet point here. It was in the Senate. So the House and Senate budgets came out Sunday, and it included in the Senate budget was having the LEOFF 2 board complete a study of making DNR wildland firefighters eligible for LEOFF 2. So one of the issues that was going on during session when this bill was first heard is there wasn't good data on the exact number, and there were some other questions about how to define these firefighters versus the firefighters that are already in LEOFF 2. And so with those questions remaining, the Senate felt it would be best for the LEOFF 2 board to study that. The study does not require that the LEOFF 2 board make any kind of recommendation, just that we complete a study and then submit that to the legislature before January 1st of next year. And then I have received some questions about this, but there was no funding given to the LEOFF 2 board to complete that study, which I don't believe will be an issue. It should be, famous last words, but it should not be a lot of work, and I don't think it will require going to ICE Miller. So just a reminder, when we studied adding tribal law enforcement officers, we did get general fund resources to help pay for that, but that did require us to work more extensively with our federal tax counsel, ICE Miller, on the federal law issues with that. So yeah, that's just in the Senate budget, not in the House budget. Also, wanted to draw your attention to a few other things in the budget. See where to start. I'll start with the start with the good news. In both budgets, LEOFF 2 contributions are fully funded. In the House budget, though, we did not receive full funding for trustee and staff education. So there was $130,000 that were not included. And then there were an additional $34,000 also not included for a cost increase in communications for the LEOFF 2 board. And so that wasn't for any new initiative or something different we're going to be doing. It was for the cost of the newsletters that we send out. In the Senate budget, both those were fully funded. So the process for us to work on those, on determine next steps with that, is that we work through the governor's office with OFM. And so Karen has been working already in contact with OFM and working with them on determining what, if any, what the concerns were and how to move forward with making sure that we're fully funded.
Jacob, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So when they struck those education dollars as well as the newsletter, there's no savings to the state. So what was the purpose of striking those lines?
Yes, you're correct. There was no savings to the state to do that. It does not come out of the general fund. At this point, we don't know what the reasoning was. So like I said, the process is we work through OFM and then they get in contact with the budget writers to resolve these types of issues. So we have not heard back yet on what the reasoning was from the House in doing that. But we'll report back to you once we have more information. Okay, and then the next topic, which I am going to ask Steve to join me up here because I think maybe take advantage of him being around a little bit longer and help me out on this one. So as everyone's aware, the LEOFF 1 termination bill from last session came back it was just a couple weeks ago. Time is hard to keep track of during session. And it ended up passing out of the House. And there was a floor amendment made to it that I wanted to draw your attention to. We can get into more detail about the bill in total, but just there was an amendment made on the floor that impacts LEOFF 2. So I want to talk about that first. It moves the responsibility of the Select Committee on Pension Policy to oversee and make recommendations on policies and funding for LEOFF 1. It moves that to the LEOFF 2 board. The effective date for that is June 30th, 2029. It also makes it doesn't add any board members to the LEOFF 2 board, but it does make a change where the retired representative board member can be a LEOFF 1 or LEOFF 2 board member. Also, I guess, I don't know, Steve, should we ask questions on that point, or should I walk through some other issues with or other things the bill does? Yeah. Oh. Do you guys have any, I guess, do you want to, any discussions or questions about that part of the bill, or would you like to hear additional detail about what the bill does for LEOFF 1?
As we go forward, Dennis, I'm going to probably make a statement before we're finished with this bill, but I'm thinking I'd like to hear what the removal of money from the pension, from the LEOFF 1 plan and where it's going.
Yeah, so a little more detail then about the termination and of LEOFF 1 and how that'll work. So last year's bill would have dropped the funding down to 100. It's currently, as of the last actual evaluation, the funding of LEOFF 1 was at 160%. And so last year's version would have dropped that down to 120%. This year's was amended to be 110% funded. It also, this year, it takes 569 million of the pension funds and moves that into the climate commitment account. And then the remainder of the surplus funds would go into the pension funding stabilization account, which then could be transferred to the state general fund. And then there is an interplay between what's in this bill and then what was in the House budget. So the Senate, but since this is a House bill, there was nothing in the Senate budget about it, but in the House budget, it over the next 2 years had $880 million transferred to the general fund. Yeah, any additional questions about the bill or comments?
Jacob, Ms. Wolf, I think that 880 million would transfer by way of technically the general fund, but into the budget stabilization account to make up for 880 million that's being used from the budget stabilization account now. So the transfer doesn't happen until 2029, I believe.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
And just as a kind of a historical footnote, the combined 880 and 500 and some odd that would go to the climate commitment account in aggregate is about the same as what people were talking about and the actuary said was possible under the same sort of construct, done differently, handled differently when this was looked at in 2002 and 3. So the actuarial work is the same. The math is the same in terms of what's left by the time you do all of the math and maintain commitment to the LEF 1 retirees under the current provisions and set that out first, then what's left.
Any additional questions or comments? I know Pat said he had some comments.
I've just got a quick question. So in all the discussion about this, I haven't heard any discussion about what happens to the LEF 1 local boards that are really their governance mechanism. I see here that the select committee is going to shift the oversight of policies and funding to us in 2029, but I still don't know what ends up happening to the governance of the individual claims that are coming in that are now being handled by the LEF 1 pension boards at the local level. What happens to those after the closing and reopening of the LEF 1 plan?
Yeah, so those, nothing changes with those. Those would continue to
Yeah.
local pension boards.
Then can somebody explain why we're going to open up the LEF 2 board to LEF 1 members for governance?
Or just remove it from SEPP.
There's no reason to move it from the select committee. They should continue to oversee and do exactly the same thing they did before. This is clearly a shift to try to take what are going to be the angry cops and firefighters and pass them off to us. They're ours. We want to take care of them. We've had that conversation with the LEF 1 members for at least the last 15 to 20 years when every one of these merger conversations have come up. So we want to help make sure that they're taken care of and that their pension is as protected as ours is. Our governance happens to be around our plan. We are fiduciaries of our plan. We're not fiduciaries of Plan 1. The select committee should be a fiduciary of Plan 1. The state investment board should be a fiduciary for Plan 1. Kicking that to us without the scope to understand outside of a statute that or an initiative that's already passed to give us governance of LEF 1 or LEF 2 complicates things dramatically, especially when it comes to throwing somebody from another plan into the potential governance of our plan with really no a LEF 1 member appointed to this board to have governance of Plan 2 seems absurd.
I have to agree with Chris. When I saw this, I'm not comfortable with what the state is doing anyways with the termination of Plan 1s. But I'm also very uncomfortable because we spent a lot of money and a lot of effort to create the LEF Plan 2 retirement board with certain guardrails in there that would only deal with Plan 2s, not Plan 1s. And with the state shifting monies away from a pension fund and then asking us to do the oversight and let SEPP be removed from any of that doesn't seem logical or in the best interest of the LEF Plan 2 board. We should not be taking on more duties that we did not ask the citizens to do. And to me, this is nothing more than somebody trying to shift the obligations and the oversight to somebody other than who should be doing it, which is the SEPP, which I'm almost positive when it was created, that's what the SEPP was supposed to be doing back in the day. So I'm agreeing with Chris and Dennis. I don't know where you want to be on this or where the rest of the board, but we should not be entertaining any type of shifting of responsibility to us from LEF 1.
Well, and just to add to that, Pat, if this had been done in consultation with us, if we'd have been a key stakeholder and been asked to play some role in this discussion, maybe things would be different. Maybe I'd feel different. I wasn't consulted. We weren't asked. We didn't play any role in the development of this. Why is this being forced on us by policymakers who aren't considering the collateral impacts or are? And if they are considering the collateral impacts of what this policy document would do, are thrusting this on us because they want to remove that from somewhere else in the state. And that should be to the shame of the legislators that are proposing this and supporting this.
Yeah, I don't, this is Wolf, I don't have any backstory whatsoever on what they were thinking about in terms of shifting this erstwhile governance function to the LEF 2 board. When I looked at it, it struck me as trying to think about it in terms of analogies. that time of year when when baseball and football seasons are overlapping, and you just hope that you don't schedule games on the same day in adjacent stadiums and then have people figuring out where to park. That you've got something of an inherent conflict. But that said, what remains in the structure for LEF 1 is essentially a run out of a closed plan, which has a whole different thought process about it as compared with our governance of an open and operating plan. So it's hard to kind of pull one hat off and put another hat on and keep straight what it is we would be doing. So it didn't strike me as something that was all that well thought out in terms of our role and how we would have to be staffed and how we would have to think about things. Because again, you've got different parameters around seeing to the run out of a closed plan that took the last new member October 1 or September 30th, I guess, in 1977, as compared to our current open and operating plan that continues to function. Totally different responsibilities in my limited view.
I hate to go out on a limb here. This is holy, and take a guess. But first, the caveat, just to set the thought process straight, is that you're trying to apply logic, construct, empirical foundations, evidence-based practices in politics. You're wasting your breath. If I was to take a guess, and who knows what the House is doing? That's why I got out of there. It's half nuts in the groupthink that happens there. But Winston Churchill is correct. In politics, nothing happens by chance. I would guess, since we're a self-funded system, to do something like this, they'd be able to do it without a fiscal note. And be able to dump that on us, which in a short term, in a broke cycle, is probably the easiest thing to do, and survive Ways and Means or appropriation scrutiny to the point where it might have a fighting chance. And it could be nothing more than a messaging bill. I don't know what's happening with this. I haven't actually heard about what the genesis is, the thought process behind it, but I'm following the money on this, and that would make most sense.
Dennis, what do you want to do with this thing? I think we let the legislature know that this is not something that we want. And then I can because to me, this is changing why the LEOFF 2 board was created. It is also, I guess I'm going to do my 45-year synopsis for you. 1981, it was the first time I came into LEOFF 2. I had no idea about LEOFF 1, had no idea anything else, but all I ever heard was LEOFF 1 was going to bankrupt the state because of all the generous benefits that were in there for police and fire, due to the fact they're public safety and due to the fact that at the time the governor, who was Dan Evans, did a great job in securing a pension fund that was actually a pension fund. And the stakeholders in all three groups had a chance to intervene on what they thought would be a good pension plan. Police left came out. It was a great plan. It actually protected on the line of duty injuries as well as off the job. And it also provided a pension for somebody that if they got hurt, protecting the public, that they would be taken care of. But for all the years, for 25 years that I worked on pensions, all I heard was we're not going to improve Plan 2s because of what we did in Plan 1, and the Plan 1s are going to bankrupt this state. And I heard that all the time. The age went from age 50 to 58. I asked how that happened. They told me they did this great study to figure out how they got to 58. I finally tracked down a LA that worked on it. And he says, Pat, you want to know how they got to the age of 58? Start counting up from 50 and start counting down to 65. And that's how they ended up with giving the LEOFF 2 the age 58 in the plan. The first time we tried to go for a reduction, even our friends in the legislature said, no, you can't do it because if we do it for you, we're going to have to do it for everybody else, blah, 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 blah. And I still remember sitting in the speaker's office when the House Appropriations chair came in and says, we're killing this bill. And he didn't see us sitting there, but the House speaker saw us and he says, we're passing the bill. So that was the first age reduction. We got the second one. But trying to move anything was always, it was like pulling teeth until we finally came up with the initiative to do the Left 2 initiative, which even in our own group thought it was foolish to do. It was going to cost us a lot of money and it was never going to work. Well, since that time, we have become almost the standard bearer for pensions within the United States for police and fire. We never got anything back on pensions for off the job duty or line of duty injuries, but we continue to improve on other things. And now the state decides they're going to stick their hand in Left 2's pocket and pull out $569,000 for a climate initiative, and which is pension money going to something that's a non-pension issue, and then trying to slack the duties and responsibilities off of the SAPP over to this board, which is totally wrong. It is wrong, wrong, wrong. And the legislatures who we supposedly have friends and sometimes friends should understand this is wrong, and we should never allow this to happen. Closing out the pension plan is one thing. Dipping in and using that money for anything other than pensions is wrong. Thank you.
Dennis, this is AJ.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree with Pat that using the money for anything other than pensions is wrong. Those are two very different issues, though. I wish that they weren't doing that, but you know, here we are. We've tried for years to get them to get Left 1 to do something different, and nobody, you know, anytime there was any traction, the Left 1 members did not like that. I think it would be really short-sighted of us to not at least very seriously consider taking over the governance of this plan. These are all of our members that are retired, that are scared and anxious about what is happening to their pension plan. If we would have had governance 10 years ago, what is happening right now would not be happening. We would have been able to stop it as the left board. And I am worried that if we do not take over governance, they're going to try to do something again in 10 more years. And we're going to be back in the same position where everyone's mad that they're dipping their hand into the Left 1 pension money. Thanks.
I disagree. We should have had this fight every year it comes up. We went silent this time and they came and got it. We should have been standing on everybody's.
Pat, the left board?
Not this left board. I'm talking as a retired member. And also I used to be an active member within the state council.
That's Pat. I mean, we're kind of going a little bit off here because
I understand.
The left board was not asked to engage on this. It came out later than most anybody had thought. The amendment was done part of the executive action by the House with no input whatsoever on any of this. We have been in opposition, at least the state council, of this bill since its beginning. And then the question came up about, okay, does this a good thing or a bad thing? And I don't think anybody from a state council standpoint, we haven't landed completely. We think there's some positives of it, as AJ mentioned. There's also some negatives potentially, as Chris and you have both brought out. But as a left or a left board, we haven't taken a position on this. We were never asked. You know,
Well, I think that's why we're asking to take a position now on this movement of the responsibility.
Well, okay, we can take that. That hearing is tomorrow at 1:30, and you know, like I said, I think, you know, I don't know. I'm not sure what you were trying to allude to, that people have been silent. We have been, at least the state council has been actively engaged trying to figure out how to manage this thing for the last probably 4 weeks. And that's pretty much been the focus. What's happening? What are we going to do? And how are we going to get out of this?
Dennis, can I just add, I really appreciate AJ's thoughts there. And if I'm sort of midstream and rethinking about where my position might be, the idea of working with our brothers and sisters in Left 1 and helping them with their governance, I'm open to having a conversation about what that would look like, because Wolf's point is really well said. the way that you think about and manage a closed plan that's winding out versus an open plan that's still accepting open enrollees takes a different kind of mindset in the way that we manage those funds. But the one thing that we do have in common with LEF 1 is we now need to have an abiding concern that any funding that goes over some threshold, 100%, 90%, whatever you want to call full funding, is now going to look to the state like a piggy bank. How do we responsibly manage funds in a retirement plan when the state doesn't share the same sort of incentive to make sure that the funds are there to be the retirement stability for our retirees? If it's not a retirement fund, if it's a piggy bank, we may need to change the way that we think about how we manage full funding in our plan, especially if we're now going to be taking on the governance of LEF 1. And as long as that's part of our consideration is how do we make sure that we're not a piggy bank, that we're a robust, full funded pension plan that'll be there in perpetuity for our retirees. I mean, this is where the reason I'm concerned about fiduciary obligations is because I don't think the state has a full appreciation for what they're passing off to our board and the decision-making obligations we're going to have to undertake, given the constraints that they're going to put us under with the policies they're putting in place. So that's my concern. I love that AJ made that point. I do think that we all share a genuine concern for our brothers and sisters in the LEF 1 plan and their governance and their ability to actively serve in those roles going forward. So Pat's got a robust 45-year history and a great understanding of how we came to be in light of what happened with LEF 1. We owe it to our entire memberships, both in the fire service and in the police service, to understand the history, because we don't want to be doomed to repeat it. But that's my fear, is every one of these conditions is now laying the foundation for somebody at the state level to consider some kind of new alternative. Nothing's broken. We've done a fantastic job, as Pat said, managing a fund that nobody believed we'd be able to do as well as we've done. And now we're the standard bearer. We should be the golden example to the rest of the state as how to manage a pension plan. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe that tribute to the LEF 2 board is giving us the governance and oversight of LEF 1 because of the responsible decisions we've made. So instead, if I don't look at it as a glass is half empty, I look at it as a glass is half full, maybe that's a tribute to us. So kudos to those legislators that saw that. But that's what if AJ, if that's the change in thinking, I'm open to that idea as long as we have a full and robust conversation is what does it look like when we're going to take on management of a pension plan that's in a radically different position to where we're at.
And not only that, Plan 2 does not have pension boards. Plan 1s have pension boards. So how does this affect Plan 1's pension boards when they have issues? There is so much that needs to be taken care of before we ever agree to accept this. And that doesn't mean they may just force this down our throat. But I think as the LEF 2 board, we need to either agree to oppose it or to stay silent. I'm thinking we need to make sure that we have our voice heard and that we don't allow this until we have more information on what they expect us to do. Because why would SEPP want to give this up?
There's a couple of other board members too who've had their hands up for a while.
Ryan.
I can't see him, so go ahead.
Ryan.
Good morning. My hand was getting really exhausted being up that whole time. So appreciate the opportunity. And good morning, Dennis. I hear the frustration, I hear the passion, I hear the concerns, right? It's what all of us are dealing with. It's what all of our boards are hearing. It's what we're seeing on social media. And Pat, I can really hear the 45 years of passion in your voice. And I got a few things to say, but then I've got a question. And it's, when legislation is passed, it's never perfect, right? We pass a bill, we look at it, we identify the issues, we go back and fix it, take another run at it, and we try to get it right. And they're doing something that many of us don't agree with, have questions, don't know what the future is going to look like. but there's probably some opportunities in there as well that I think that AJ was touching on that we should probably be considering. We're not going to fix this right here. We're not going to fix the issue, on the board meeting. We can get as frustrated as we want, but I think that we're pointing that frustration in the wrong direction. And I think that we need to understand what is happening. We need to have the conversations that I believe that are currently taking place to try and fix some things before this thing's finalized. And then I think that we need to look at creating a plan in the future to, if this is a way that it's going to be, then how do we work with what is being pushed to us? So, and I guess the question for me is from our perspective, what legal authority or what authority do we have that we can push back on this and tell somebody, no, we're not going to do this? So that's all I got. Thanks, Dennis.
So Dennis, I can jump in and try to answer that. So as far as if the bill passes, then the Left 2 board would not have legal authority to not comply with this. There is the effective date of June 30th, 2029. So there would still be time if we identify concerns, issues, things that we believe need to be changed or fixed in the law, that we could go back to the legislature and ask for that. I did also just want to touch on Chris's comments about the fiduciary responsibility. I'm going to need to research that more, but my understanding is that the Select Committee on Pension Policy is not a fiduciary, that's a difference between the Left 2 board and Select Committee. And since this just brings over the Select Committee's role over Left 1, that the board would not then become a fiduciary of Left 1, it would still just be Left 2. But then Chris's other comment, I believe, is correct, that if a Left 1 retiree is appointed into a position on the Left 2 board, they would be a fiduciary of the Left 2, of Left 2. But I'll continue to research that, and if I find out I'm completely wrong, I'll follow up with the board. Wolf had his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just thinking out loud a bit, but also trying to reflect on what I've read in the bill and the accompanying materials. The original action of the legislature in 1977 to close the plan included provisions for what happens to funds left over at the end when the last member passes away and is no longer owed funds. And over the course of that time, the legislature has said once in the early 2000s and here again, we're just speeding up when that happens. We're getting actuarial work tells us we're going to leave 110% to cover the benefit structure, leave it untouched. Everybody who's owed something is still getting everything they've been owed. Take it to 110%. And the legislature's now contemplating taking the balance that would be left over based on that actuarial work earlier rather than waiting until the end. You wait till the end, the amount is still left over, and the provision that it reverts to the state general fund is still there. So what's really happening here is less of a new thing than it is changing the timing of a very old thing that's embedded in the law and in the way this plan was structured when Left 1 was closed. That being said, there are other provisions that I've read in the bill and in the accompanying materials that says that should there be a need for additional funds, the legislature will provide them. Quarterly payments into the fund to make good on the contractual obligations to Left 1 recipients. So having read that and seeing that there's some role created here for the Left 2 board, which I still have concerns, deep concerns about conflating and conflicting that into our tasks to oversee and make recommendations on policy and funding, we could read that as moving it to us without anything to do, right? Because the actions of the legislature in this bill contemplate a role for the legislature to backfill whatever if there is a risk of running out of money or running below 100% and needing additional funds to pay off the contractual obligations to LEF 1 members as they're currently contrived. So there really doesn't seem to be much to do, except for dealing with the expectations that are created by making this move, that there is something available to LEF 1 retirees and that we would be entertaining recommendations and policies and funding levels that for us to recommend and for the legislature to act is in conflict with the legislature's responsibility as it's outlined for itself in the bill. So there's a lot wrong with making this move of responsibility from SCPP to us. It's completely vercocked the deal here. It just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense to me. Other things might, but that one doesn't. And the other comment I'd have, there are always concerns that there could be, let's call it a camel's nose under the tent. They do this with LEF 1. What if they ever
Here it
did this
comes.
to LEF 2? LEF 2 is an open and operating plan. PERS 2, PSERS, etc. TERS 2 and 3 are open and operating plans. A lot would have to happen. A whole lot would have to happen before there'd be any similar opportunity under the law and under the IRS requirements and under all manner of other requirements under Bachenhaus and everything else for this to ever happen to the LEF 2 funding structure that we have made a good job of taking care of. It's just a very different world. It's less a camel's nose under the tent and more like them sticking the camel's nose under railroad tracks, because it's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. It won't make any sense whatsoever and isn't available to them, but for another action like was taken in 1977. Because you'd have to do that first before you could ever get to the insides of our funding structure. And I did hear a comment a moment ago that this might be coming to us because we've done a good job. I would concur with that. Call it the curse of competence. It's something that I think we've earned the reputation of being good at this and being very mindful and being very thoughtful about how we're doing things in the LEF 2 board. And that might be an attraction at a superficial level for folks in the legislature. Hey, give it to Mikey, he'll eat anything. Great, but it's wholly inappropriate for this to move in terms of those responsibilities to move to the LEF 2 board, in my view. I think there's just all kinds of reasons why we'd be concerned about that. And I think if there was a way to express that to the legislature, especially if this is in a separate section of the bill, if they wanted to do something else, that's their problem, but don't do this. This doesn't seem to be useful and causes clutter and confusion.
Just one more follow-up technical question, because I would anticipate that we're going to end up getting several requests to study LEF 1 benefit improvements. So once this then comes our way, with what resources are we going to study LEF 1 requests for benefit improvements? Is that part of this discussion as well?
Yes, so that is an issue we've looked into, and so the bill does not provide any mechanism for using LEF 1 funds for the LEF 2 board to study LEF 1 issues. So those would come out of our LEF 2 expense fund, which comes out of the LEF 2 trust fund. So LEF 2 would be paying for those LEF 1 studies. And then also I did have an opportunity, I think Department of Retirement Systems, they checked with tax counsel, Ice Miller, on the question of whether there were any federal law concerns with doing that. And they did not have any concerns. So no federal law issues, but still, an issue.
I anticipate a state law issue, though. How do I reconcile my fiduciary obligation to the LEF 2 plan by spending LEF 2 money to study something from the plan? So that Again, this is the quandary
Yeah.
that this sort of ill-considered policy puts onto the trustees to have to make decisions.
And with that, Dennis, just one more thing, and Wolf, you brought up a good point, and to where I was trying to go, not only with the board, but also as a retiree under Plan 2, is when the state says if Plan 1 needs more money and they'll fund it, there's nothing stopping them from reaching into Plan 2 when it's overfunded to say they've got the money to pay for those benefits. And I go back to that, to when the legislature said, when there was extraordinary gains on interest, that they promised PERS to split the excess funds, and they were going to give it to the PERS members. And then when it came due to have the legislature give that money to the plan, all of a sudden the legislature says, well, it wasn't in statute, so we don't have to give it to you. So there's always things that are left that they don't have to follow it, because you can't hold future legislators to what the present legislatures do. I think it's
Correct.
as I say, there's problems with what they did to begin with the termination and not involving everybody, or not. And I still have an issue with them taking money out of a pension plan and funding a climate initiative, which seems like it's an unfunded initiative, that they're now taking pension money to fund that initiative. But to me, that's an issue. I would have, I think back in the day, Dennis, you probably would have heard a lot more out of me from the board. And to me, these are the issues that they think that, for lack of a better, one of the things, Animal House had a couple of good sayings. One of his, thank you, sir, may I have another? I don't get into that. And two is that the end of the day, if they think we're going to roll over, they're going to keep on loading stuff up on top of us. So this board has done a great job in protecting our image and what we do. And sometimes you got to go into the chief's office and put your fist in it. So, and I think this might be the time.
Okay, Jay has his hand raised.
Thank you. Just on a related, but maybe just a different conversation, is just any money coming out of the LEOFF 1 plan. Cities and members paid into those funds. And to me, if there's money going to be pulled out, the conversation I'm having with my local delegation is that think about what portion of those money should come back to cities. We have LEOFF 1 medical that we still are responsible for, and LEOFF 1 members who need medical coverage. I'd love to see a portion of that money come back to cities to help fund LEOFF 1 medical. So I think there's lots of other conversations that we need to have with the legislature about, if you're going to take money out of a fund, the state shouldn't be the only one to benefit from it.
I think the notes that I've seen accompanying the bill say several times 77 or 80% of the fund was from the state over the course of time, paid in by the state. So there is some portion that is non-state funds, to whatever degree is member and local government funds. There could be a case made for that.
I can tell you.
That's distortion. That's based on approval.
It's the investments.
20 years and 7.
Any money that's made by the state is claiming is that it's their money.
Right.
So it's yes. Yes.
Can't see anybody online. Do any of the other board members have their hands up?
They don't. Nope. There's Jason.
Jason?
Yeah, hello. Sorry for my tardiness. I got stuck in some traffic here. I'm in Spain, and to be transparent, I got lost. So I had to get to some internet, so I apologize for being late. And again, I apologize. I don't know what's been said. I have so many questions and so many concerns about this. And thank you, Wolf. You artfully addressed several of them. I'm not sure how we proceed, where, I mean, we kind of getting this rammed down our throat. And I agree with, if we don't have a choice and it's something we can make work and take care of, people that are in our industry and try to help out. I get that, but I mean, this doesn't seem like it seems like it was thought up at the last minute. I mean, there's very little details in the bill, obviously, and it seems like it's typical Washington legislation where let's pass it and then we'll figure it out later. And I just have zero peace about this. Especially with what Chris mentioned, and I talked to Jacob about this a couple weeks ago. Is how do you pay for this? And now we're talking about using LEFF 2 funds to pay for LEFF 1 studies, and I think there's a significant fiduciary issue there, where I mean, it's just not right, and I don't know. I just wanted to make that my opinion. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, but thank you.
Okay, Dennis, it looks like there's no other hands raised.
Right.
So do you want me to go ahead and move on to the next administrative update, or
I
Dennis,
guess that's what.
if it's
Go
okay,
ahead.
I had one question, Dennis. And that is, you mentioned there's a hearing on this tomorrow. And we will be asked, Jacob and I have been asked, will be asked, if the board has a position on obviously the board's had no position on the bill when it was just a LEFF 1 bill. But now that it's got this LEFF 2 component in it, does the board have a position, whether it's on that specific piece of the bill or not, that you would like to communicate to the Senate Ways and Means Committee at the hearing tomorrow? And obviously, that would take a vote of the board, and that would take a motion.
Yeah, obviously that's the question, right? I've got a lot of thoughts, but I'm just kind of trying to sort through them right now. So,
Hey, Dennis, would the easiest thing to be to express concerns? I mean, if we took a position of other with concerns, does that give us the opportunity to weigh in on what is concerning about this? I mean, there may be some positives that we want to work with and nuggets of good ideas in there, but embedded in some of those good ideas are a bunch of really hazardous sort of landmines, and we want to make sure that we're not stepping on those. So would it be helpful to have a motion to take an other position with concerns?
that's one of the paths that we can go down. I think that allows obviously when you're in opposition, it's closed, right? There's little to move around. If you have the chance to, I guess, make suggestions, you're going to be in that other category where maybe you can be open and try to figure out if there's something we can work on. We have, if it still moves forward, we still have 3 years to kind of work through this. And it goes back to Jason's thought is that sometimes we create legislation and then we got next couple of years trying to figure out how it's even going to work. I've got the same concerns as everyone else does, but this is one of those things. If we would have knew this, ahead of time, we easily could have been part of a group that maybe just studied what that would look like for our board to have governance and what the questions might be. But now we're forced with an amendment that sits there right now, which will be in front of the Senate. And there's a good opportunity, I think it's a way we can raise our questions. We can start to at least go on record that we need to have issues addressed as we move forward. So that's one path, Chris.
Yeah, so I agree with you. We can't shape policy if we're not at the table having a conversation as one of the key stakeholders. And I think we kick ourselves out of that conversation. Even in our frustration, if we just say no and we just oppose, we're probably not going to be included in the conversation about shaping this going forward. So, I'm happy just to kind of give more space if other board members want to say what they'd prefer in terms of a motion or in the conversation. I'm prepared to make a motion along what I just mentioned, but I don't want to short circuit discussion with the board. But happy to get this into discussion on a motion if that's the more appropriate format. So I'll leave it open for a second, but I'm happy to make the motion if that's going to help accelerate this discussion.
This Wolf chiming in for a minute. there are opportunities over the next 3 years, but the biggest opportunity we have is over the next 3 weeks. So I think saying something about our primal concerns about the shift from SCPP of responsibilities to the LEF 2 board is significant in my view. I think now is when you need to say that, and we need to be clear about that. And especially if it's standing in a separate section of the bill that isn't entangled with any other parts of the bill, the legislature can address that. They can turn it into a study about governance. They can do all kinds of manner of things that they want to. But there's a primal concern that I've heard us talk about most related to commingling both the responsibilities, but the risk of commingling funds and inappropriately, and I think potentially unlawfully invading one plan to support the analysis and the work related to the other plan. So I think there's just a primal concern on my part about that I think we need to let them know about and be pretty clear. Whether we raise other concerns, whether Steve and Jacob go in and raise other concerns about the broader policy issues about what the disposition of the funds, what you do with a closed plan, I think it's a somewhat different conversation to have. And it leads us into a different space, but there's a core responsibility on our part to say something out loud. And then, okay, so they passed the bill. The governor's going to have action on it too. And we need to be able to say we said something if we're asking for help from the governor too.
Okay, Jason has his hand raised.
Yeah, AJ was before me.
Oh, I was just gonna say I would support Chris's proposal.
Go ahead, Jason.
Okay, so for me, I have been for the last 3 weeks, I've been inundated with questions from left 2 folks that obviously have seen what the state Republicans have been putting out, which is Democrats are raiding a pension system, which creates fear, which prompts questions. How is this affecting me? I've got guys that are on the cusp of retiring. I've got guys that are in for 5 years that are just now vested, that are all panicking because they don't understand the details. They don't have the insights and knowledge and access to folks that have knowledge like we do. And I have been telling people that, this really isn't going to have a huge impact on LEF 2 until now, because now I just found out that we're going to use LEF 2 monies to support LEF 1 studies. I think that is an incredibly slippery slope. And I mean, I'm a no. If I was there, I would say, I don't support this. I don't think this is well thought out. I think that we have the cart just light years in front of the horse at this point. I do understand that, we just can't say, these are my marbles. I'm going to go sit in the corner. I get that. And I know we need to be part of the conversation, but I don't think just saying, well, I think we just be other for now. I know these folks and I know this legislature, and that I don't think that's going to mean a whole lot. I agree with Wolf. I think we got 3 weeks, and after that, I don't think we got a whole lot. And we're going to be begging, borrowing, and pleading, trying to save us from a disaster that we didn't create. So I don't know the most artful way to do that, but I can't sit here and not speak my mind on something that I think is potentially disastrous for LEF 2. The way I don't think I think it can be done if we think it out and don't try to ram it through in 3 weeks, which is what's being done. But I'm just very reserved and concerned about what we're trying to do. So I hope that makes sense.
Senator Holy.
So, Steve, I'm glad that Jacob threw you under the bus on this one. It's kind of a parting gift, Look, I'm looking at.
We talked about this. it was mutually agreed upon. So he's not throwing me under the bus.
Oh, I'm teasing you. So I'm looking at Fitzgibbon's February 13th amendment, which I'm guessing is the genesis of this concern why it's so late in the game. And I want to read the effect statement here on this so you get an idea of the bandwidth we have to play with. It's 3 weeks will be till something like this passes. The effective date is something totally different, and we might have some time to tap dance on this. The effect is it moves the responsibility of the Select Committee on Pension Policy to oversee and make recommendations on policies and funding for the restated LEOFF law enforcement firefighters, officers and firefighters retirement system, restated LEOFF, to the law enforcement officers and firefighters retirement system plan to board upon creation of the restated LEOFF on June 30th, 2029. So actually the effective date on this is pushed far enough out that we have time to respond with a couple of sessions worth of adjustments if this does get traction. I'm going to quietly ask some questions from committee chairs I have a relationship with and find out what the driver is behind this and the why if I can, and I'll report back at the next meeting we have. But this is the couple-year window in here before something like this actually takes effect versus when it passes. And that's an awful lot could happen.
I guess one more thought to throw out there into the ether while we're considering. Is there a single left one stakeholder group that supports this? I mean, if they're unanimous in their opposition to this, doesn't that speak volumes to whether or not this is in the best interest of the left one members who are most impacted by this proposal?
Yeah, if you're talking about when you say this proposal, if you're talking about the termination, I think that issue, they've been unanimous in opposition. If you're talking about the issue of transferring governance, that is so new that I don't know that they've had a chance to take positions and whether they see this as a pro or a con. That's part of it. Is these are two very separate issues. Termination is one issue. Mm-hmm. The transfer of governance is a separate issue. Now, by having them at the same time, and particularly in the same bill, I think it does create a challenge to sort of separate those issues from a policy thing. And even though the transfer of governance doesn't happen until 2029, I do expect, Jacob and I, we've talked about this, there's going to be a lot going on between now and 2029 related to the termination. And are the stakeholders going to be communicating with the select committee? Are they going to be communicating with the left board? Both. And what does that look like for us, even if it's not our legal responsibility?
Right. And as long as we understand the bifurcation of those two issues, the governance and then what happens with the transfer of funds, I think Jay very articulately said the concerns that's not being addressed here is something that the left one members themselves are also probably concerned about. Why is the state the only entity getting any benefit from this? Left one members have been asking for benefit improvement for a long time. The cities and counties have been asking for assistance on paying for left one medical for a long time. Those budget impacts have been affecting local jurisdictions for a long time. And if the state's going to be the only entity that sees any benefit from this, those conversations need to be part of whatever, if we're opposed, if we are neutral with concerns, those are all the relevant, really important conversations that need to be had with the policymakers, as well as all of the intricacies of the legal wrangling around what happens with governance and what happens when you shift governance to another board. So again, all that's really important. I'm glad that we've had that robust conversation here. I just want to make sure that in whatever happens now with the motion and then our advocacy going forward, those are all being relayed to the legislature.
Yeah, two things I want to clarify. One is the first thing, when I was talking about the board potentially having a position, I wasn't talking about on termination. The termination was studied by the select committee last year. They've got a 200-page report where they dealt with the legal and other questions regarding termination. That is out there, and so it was more position just on the governance. And then the second thing was, just from a practical point, I wasn't 100% clear that you made a motion, and I wasn't 100% clear that AJ seconded that motion. So before we go, yeah, well, yeah, you were like, well, I'm not sure if this is a motion or not. And then AJ said, well, I'll agree with Chris. And so, but just from a pure technical, you would need
Yeah,
a,
from a technical position, there's been no motion.
okay.
We can entertain one.
You hear that? Entertain.
I just want to make sure that we close the door on conversation here before we move into motion discussion.
Mhm.
Just want to make sure I give everybody an opportunity if they want to be involved in the conversation before we move into motion discussion.
Are there any other comments?
We could
Unfortunately,
christen this, we could christen this provision to move the oversight and make recommendations and policy, the Bo Jackson provision. Where you're having us play baseball and football in the same season. It happens once in a generation at the most. And as good as we are, we ain't that good. So it remains very troubling to me. And I'll tell you, just cards on the table, I'm nowhere near as concerned about the termination as I am about the governance change.
As am I.
Yeah, that goes without saying. I mean, we all knew sooner or later that the legislature was going to reach into the Plan 1. There's no doubt about it. And they weren't going to wait until the last person standing to do it. So what they did was they did a 200-page report so they can cover their butts when they did do what they did. But then they turned around and moved to have all the responsibilities moved from the SCPP and probably other pension boards, because I don't even think they've considered that. And I think Jay made a really good point. And one of the things, as you said, Wolf, is that the state is trying to claim 70% of that money as being theirs. Well, that 70% includes investment returns. But all those investment returns came from the contributions from members and employers. So there's a lot here out there. There's a lot of, for some reason, they moved quickly and they moved efficiently to stick their hand into the cookie jar. And now they're trying to get us to cover their bets. So I think if Chris makes a motion and AJ seconds it, I'm pretty sure we should be able to give Steve and Jacob some ammunition for the meeting tomorrow to either oppose or to come up with a different plan on what we need to do here.
Anybody else got comments?
I'll go ahead and just then make the motion, Dennis, so we can get into discussion. I'll make a motion that we take an other position with concerns.
Motion's been made to take the position of other with concerns. Is there a second?
Second from AJ.
Second.
Second from AJ. All right, open up for discussion on that alone.
I just don't
Can we
want,
say other with,
Concerns
sorry,
with concerns, Jason.
I would say substantial concerns.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't want that to be like a soft position where the
Yeah.
folks that are feeling like they're just opposed
That's
don't.
my concern.
Just say it.
My concern is other with concerns comes off as soft. And I know this group and I know what kind of ball they play. And I think if we don't put a punctuation on it, it's not going to stand. I don't think they're going to care. There's a lot of money at play here and that's what they want.
Well, if this
And
gets
at the end
voted
of the
down,
day-
I'm
at the
happy to
end of the day,
reconsider the
we're-
motion.
We're a
Just
pain in
as
the
rem-
ass at the end of the day.
Just remember, as the motion is on the specific amendment that they added. It's not on the bill and not where they spending the money, none of that. That's not what we're talking about. So I'm confident enough to know that if Jacob or Steve are presenting in front of that committee, Ways and Means, that they'll be able to carry and share kind of what the concerns are. I don't think they're going to be dismissive in any way towards those two individuals. So, yeah, you can say other with substantial concerns, others with humongous concerns, whatever you guys want.
I like humongous.
Ginormous,
Yeah.
ginormous.
Just so it's clear, concise, and leads them to a choice to remove this amendment or sets up somebody else removing the amendment, either in a floor action or should it pass at the legislature, you have a way to go to the governor and say, take the section out. Bad idea. Here's why.
Yeah.
Got to be crystal clear. Yeah, we crystal clear.
Can we say this is a stupid amendment?
That's your outside voice, Pat. Okay. we're
Oh,
on.
did it sound, oh, did you hear me? I'm sorry. I didn't think I had the mic on.
All right. On the amendment and only the amendment. Further discussion on the motion? All right. I can't see the hands up. I'm sorry, trying to work on my phone today. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Steve, Jacob, do you got, you think you have enough information?
I think so. Jacob and I will talk about the plan for tomorrow, but I think we've got clear direction. Thank you.
All right. Jacob, your next
Okay.
one.
Yeah, on to the administrative update. So a few things coming up next month. There's an outreach event that Tim will be speaking at for the Longview Fire on March 11th. And then the last day of session, at least regular session, is March 12th. And then we have Steve's retirement event on March 25th. Everyone will be getting their invites to that. I think we have a slide with that. Is that the next slide? Check this out.
Oh yeah.
I love this. We'll be, hopefully everyone can make it and we can celebrate Steve's retirement together. So that's it for the admin update.
Right, and I know that Chloe sent me the script for the public comment, but since I'm working on my phone, I'm just gonna say we encourage public comment. However, we have not received any comments for this meeting, so does that work, Chloe? Thumbs up, thumbs down, sure. All right, anything else before the group? I was gonna say, I saw this, I actually was doing a little searching and I know that we recognized and took a moment of silence for Tor at our last meeting. That was unexpected, his passing. There is a memorial service. I found it online and it's on Saturday, the 28th. It's in Seattle. I can send the information to Steve and Jacob. Maybe they can send it out. I found it on Caring Bridge Update. I know I had our office staff is going to send flowers right away. So we'll make sure we get that done this morning, but not sure. I'll make sure they get that information, but anyways, just kind of keep him in his family in your thoughts and prayers. So.
Hey,
Anything
Dennis,
else?
can I ask a favor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dennis, can you send that information to Teresa over
Okay.
at Walkops?
Yep. I'll do that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep. Other comments or questions? Not seeing or hearing any, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and second to adjourn. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 25th. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Thank you very much for the conversation today. Appreciate the dialogue and everybody sharing their thoughts. So, all right. See everybody next month. Be safe.